In this video, we're going to discuss the 5 elements, specifically the fire element, heart, small intestine, sanjiao, and pericardium. How knowledge of the fire element can help you have a different idea about yourself and health. I'm Professor Qi. I help people raise their vibration. Welcome to yet another video. Now let's get started. The fire element is the most important of the 5 elements in the sense that it has 4 internal organs. It is so important because fire represents metabolism, and all energy is about metabolism. Everything that becomes something is energy, and when energy works, the workings of energy is metabolism. So I feel this is the reason why the fire element has 4 internal organs rather than just 2. These internal organs are the heart, the small intestine, the sanjiao, and the pericardium. Now we all know what the heart is, but in Chinese thinking, the heart is much more than just the beating heart. It is the heart mind. So when the Chinese think of the heart, it's called Qi, and it means the heart mind. So it's not just what pumps the blood. Now, of course, that's a very important part of the heart, but it's also higher thinking. It's the kind of thinking that's not just brain thinking. Brain thinking is about assessment, about contrasting and comparing, whereas the heart mind, that kind of thinking is more about higher reasoning, the ability to have knowing. The heart mind is about knowing. It's about knowing things rather than calculating, because the brain thinking is always about the past. You're assessing things that you've already know. But the heart mind, or the heart itself, is the intuitive kind of thinking. It's thoughts that feel and feelings that can think, which is a very different way of thinking than we're used to in the West. Oftentimes when we think in terms of intuition, it just seems like, oh, that's something that psychics do, or people with a special talent. But the truth of the matter is, we all are very intuitive. We're much more intuitive than we give ourselves credit for. It's the focus on the exterior, and the focus on rationalization, and the focus on the past, and how difficult it can be to survive, how much we're caught up in comparing ourselves to others. These are the things that keep us locked in to the mental kind of thinking, rather than becoming more full in our ability to feel thoughts and think feelings. The heart is coupled with the small intestine. Now you might think, my goodness, how can the heart be connected to the small intestine? Well, they're both fire. They're about heat. The small intestine is a very hot place in the body. Hot in the terms of metabolism. Tremendous amounts of metabolism is happening in the small intestine. The small intestine is where the food goes after the stomach churns it up. It goes into the small intestine where a lot of caustic type of chemicals are mixed in there. Things, bile from the liver, all these chemicals, these biochemicals that break the food that's been crushed down by the stomach into usable food essence. From there it moves on to the large intestine, which we'll talk about in another film. But this is the reason why the heart, as coupled with the small intestine, is that they're both very hot in terms of metabolism. They're about fire. The other 2 internal organs they're strange in the sense that the pericardium in Chinese, in Western thinking, it's just the sac that the heart is in. And it's like, well, goodness, what's good as a sac? What kind of internal organ is that? But in Chinese thinking, the pericardium is what protects the heart, and not just the beating heart, but it energetically protects those higher functions of knowing that the heart is. The pericardium is, and if you go back a couple hundred years ago, they didn't even have a heart channel. You would just treat the pericardium channel because the heart was considered too sacred to be messing with, with acupuncture needles. But in modern acupuncture, we use the heart channel a lot. But the pericardium channel is what is used for stress relief, because it protects the heart. It protects the higher knowing that we are. The pericardium is coupled with the sanjiao, or the triple heater, or sometimes it's called the triple sex. I'm not sure why it's called the triple sex. That's an old name. The triple heater is more accurate. Now, the sanjiao, or the triple heater, is very interesting idea, in that it talks about the three spaces in the body. The upper jiao, san, jiao. San means three, jiao means space. So it's the three spaces in the body. The upper jiao, the middle jiao, and the lower jiao. The upper jiao is the heart, lungs, and it's considered, the atmosphere in the upper jiao is considered a mist, because we breathe, and we breathe into the lungs that are wet, and then there's the blood pumping up and around all that area, so it's considered a very moist place that's full of air, so it's like a mist. The middle jiao, which represents the digestive organs of the stomach, the pancreas and spleen and the liver, that is considered a furnace, because all the food is being burnt up there. So the middle jiao is like a furnace. The lower jiao, which is the kidney and the urinary bladder, it's like a swamp, because the lower jiao is where the body it decides what is good fluids and to hang on to, and the not so needed fluids that we urinate out. So again, the sanjiao is three spaces: the upper jiao, the middle jiao, and the lower jiao. And the upper jiao is like a mist, the middle jiao is like a furnace, and the lower jiao is like a swamp. Furthermore, there's a lot there energetically or functionally speaking, because the sanjiao is a very interesting channel to work with, and you use it a lot to relieve heat, because it's about heat regulation or temperature regulation in each of these spaces. Now, when we say temperature, we're speaking more in terms of metabolism. So in many ways, the sanjiao represents the endocrine system, the ability for the body to excrete these biochemicals that cause reaction and create metabolism. So in the sense that it's temperature regulation, it creates an atmosphere of regulation between hot and cold, between too much metabolism and not enough metabolism. So in other words, the endocrine system releases these hormones that cause a certain amount of metabolism, but they don't give you so much metabolism that you freak out. It's just a certain amount of metabolism. So the endocrine system regulates the amount of hormones that are produced and secreted into the body to create reactions and metabolic reactions that control the function of the other internal organs. Now, again, this is the fire element, and as I was saying, it has 4 internal organs, and the color of the fire element is red, which makes sense. The heart, blood, that makes a lot of sense, and fire is heat. So the temperature of the fire element is heat, and heat in the body is a very important concept. The difference between a corpse and a living body is heat. and metabolism and the blood pumping through it. So this idea of heat or metabolism is what the fire element is all about. It's about metabolism. It's about the ability for the blood to be flowing in the body. Now the blood and the qi are always coupled. The blood is the mother of the qi. The qi is the leader of the blood. So when we talk about, qi in Chinese medicine, you can easily talk about blood because they're similar. They're always together. Where you find blood, you'll find qi. Where you find qi, there'll be blood. Because the blood carries the messages and the function and creates the functionality of the qi. The blood vessels are regulated by the fire element, which makes sense because it's connected to the heart, and the opening of the fire element is the tongue. Now that may seem a little odd. But not at all in Chinese thinking, because the Chinese medical thinking, because the tongue is very important as a diagnostic tool, or not a tool, but something to look at and figure out what is happening inside of the body. And again, the fire element is expressed in the tongue. And the tongue is very important. I'm speaking to you now because of the movement of my tongue. Our tongue is what gives us the sense of taste. Our tongue articulates life. The knowing in the heart is articulated with the tongue. Our tongue is what, in many ways, it is the bridge between the inner part of us and the outer part of us. We speak with our tongue. We taste with our tongue. And the tongue, because of its relationship with the fire element, is like a window to the inside of the body and what is happening metabolically. I'll make another film about tongue diagnosis, but it's very interesting. The different parts of the tongue's body that you can look at and see what's going on inside of the body. It's very interesting. The taste of the fire element is bitter, the bitter flavor. Now, it's the bitter flavor, the flavors are really much more associated with herbology, and bitter herbs have a very strong effect on the fire element, and particularly the heart. The emotion of the heart is joy. And joy it's more than just joy. It's not joy like, oh, I'm enjoying myself. It's the joy of life. And the negative aspect of this is, of course, depression. For instance, when people are depressed, you can feel their pulse, and you'll notice right away something in the heart position on the pulse. And when they take antidepressants, the pulse in the heart is very, very much affected. So the ability to feel joy is about the heart. And it's not just the blood pumping, which is obvious. If the blood's not pumping properly, if you have high blood pressure, it's very difficult to feel joy. If you have low blood pressure, it's very difficult to feel joy. And if the heart is about illumination and joy and knowing, when there's anything going on in the heart, that lack of knowing, the lack of illumination is going to be depression. So a healthy fire element is that you're going to see a lot of joy in that person. Another property of the joy of the heart element, or the fire element in the heart, is illumination. Now, illumination is a kind of an odd idea in that it's not like, oh, I can see because everything's lit up. It's like the light of love. It is the light of enlightenment, let's say. So it's light as opposed to darkness. So if we're not happy and joyful, then we're dark. So if we're joyful, there's a certain amount of illumination and enthusiasm for life. So the element for the heart, or the emotion for the heart, is this joy for life, this enthusiasm and illumination, and all the things that you would think about in a poetic sense when you think about heartfelt feelings. The sound for the fire element is laughing. Now that makes sense. If the emotion is joy, then the sound must be laughing, right? That makes a lot of sense. The time for the fire element is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The heat of the day, the high noon part time of the day, the hottest part of the day. Traditionally, in almost all traditional cultures, people took a nap this time of the day. Now, in the West, for the most part, and particularly in America, this is about as unpatriotic a thing as you could possibly do. There must be something wrong with you if you want to take a nap in the middle of the day. Only old people take naps in the middle of the day. However, taking a nap in the middle of the day makes a lot of sense. It gives a break to the heart. It gives a break to the fire. It allows the fire to be cool. There's a concept in the fire element and the heart is for it to be cool. Being too fiery is you're a hothead. Too much fire in the heart is you're going to be a little too joyful. You're going to be a little too exuberant, a little too enthusiastic. So having the heart fire tempered is a very, very important idea in preventive medicine and Chinese medicine, preventive aspects of Chinese medicine. We don't want to be so emotional that we're fiery all the time. It's best to have a tempered heart, a heart that is not just knowing, but wise, a heart that is full of feeling, but not overthinking. As far as how these elements work together, the fire element feeds the earth. And this is thought of as when fire burns up, it creates ash, and the ash feeds the earth. But more importantly, biologically or functionally speaking, if the blood's not flowing properly and there's not enough metabolism in the body, you're going to have problems digesting your food. Because, for instance, when you eat, like 40% of your blood is going to be digesting food. So if you have trouble with the blood moving properly throughout the body, the first thing that is going to be noticed is a lack of digestive function. There's more esoteric aspects between the relationship between fire and earth, but that's the idea, is that fire feeds the earth. And fire overacts or works against metal or against the lung and large intestine. Now, if you think about it, the heart and lung share the upper jowl. They're next to each other. So if there's too much fire in the heart, there's going to be too much fire in the lungs. So if the heart is overactive, the lung will be overactive. That's one way of looking at it. There's other more esoteric aspects of it, but at the moment we won't get into that. And as far as the channels go, like I said, there are 4 internal organs, so there are 4 channels in the fire element. The first is the heart. The heart channel flows right along here on the inside. This is the yin part of the arm. This is the yang part of the arm. So it flows right over here on the ulnar side of the arm. And then on the other side, along this yang part, is the small intestine. They're right next to each other. Then the pericardium, it's right in the middle of the forearm. And then on the opposite side, right in the middle of the back part of the anterior part of the forearm, is the sanjiao, or the triple heater. So they're coupled like this, and the heart and the small intestine is coupled like this. The channels are always opposite from each other. They're opposite from each other, and the way you treat them is often opposed. You can even treat the small intestine channel to affect the heart, and the heart channel to affect the small intestine. The small intestine channel is a very long channel, and it ends up here in the upper back. And if we have too much heart fire, by the way, the heart channel is a very short channel. It just goes to the armpit. The yin channels tend to be short, and the yang channels tend to be long. The yin channels, they provide the essence of that element, whereas the yang channels, they're an outlet for the function of that channel. So if there's too much heart fire and too much fire in the small intestine, you'll be feeling heat and pain in the upper part of the body along the small intestine channel, and that may well be reflecting the heat in the heart channel. So, in conclusion, the fire element is the most special or the most interesting of the 5 elements, in that it has 4 internal organs. The fire element is probably the most important because it represents metabolism, and metabolism is the whole reason that the 5 elements even are in existence, because it's the energy of yin and yang moving into the human body, manifesting itself as the 5 senses or the 5 elements, and together they create our human life.